Your two hosts, Carlos and Dylan.
Welcome back, Dylan. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and let's talk some football.
Yes, sir.
What
I'm
are your
excited.
thoughts on the FSU game and the way it was handled?
Yeah, I thought that was probably the most fun game of the year. I mean, Texas was fun. It was a little bit of an upset, but I think ending the year off with a huge win over a rival and truly just dominating them on the football field is really exciting. I mean, you obviously got to start off with Jaden Ball. That was an incredible performance. I couldn't believe it every time. I was down taking pictures. I was down at field level. Every time he got the ball, I was just shocked that he was breaking off runs and, getting out of tackles. Phenomenal football player. We knew that from the start, but just added to it and showed how important it is for Florida to retain him. But yeah, that was an awesome football game. I thought, it was the perfect way to go out, especially Billy Gonzalez. I'm sure it meant a lot to him. I mean, taking over the job and being such a Gator for life, it was really awesome to see for him as well. So I had a great time, and it was a great way to end the season.
Is there any truth to? I just heard earlier this morning. I'm watching High Tops live because they've been live for 3 hours. That the kids can't declare for the portal until January 2nd.
Yeah. I think Zach Goodall reported that. Great reporter. He mentioned, I think, because of I forgot what it was, some rule. They can't declare for the portal for a little bit. So I think that's nice for Florida. I think that's an advantage for Florida, especially getting Summerall in here, giving him time to kind of work with these guys and kind of win them over. I think that's a huge win. A lot better than if they could have just said, right off when he was announced, oh, I'm out of here. So I think it's a huge positive, and we'll see how it goes. I think, he's shown us so far in this signing day cycle that he can work fast with some guys. So let's hope that continues.
Your first impression of Coach Summerall. Obviously, half of Gator Nation is upset that we didn't get Lane. I'm gonna try to get see if I can get Danny Werfel on here. I'm gonna try to reach out to Allie later on because he had some insight on the coaching search, and I saw a video she posted yesterday. So I would like to get Danny on here. Half of the Gator Nation's upset that we didn't get Lane, and half of Gator Nation is like, let's give Coach John Summerall a shot. My initial thoughts from the press conference, he reminded me, and I may be jumping the gun, but he reminded me a lot of Urban Meyer.
Yeah, I think, I mean, when it kind of was told to everyone and made pretty clear that it was Lane Kiffin or bust for the Florida administration, I think that kind of made it that if it wasn't going to be Lane, everyone was going to be disappointed, whoever it was. Initially, when the announcement was first made, I was a little disappointed just because of that fact. Like, you told us that you were going to do everything in your power to go get Lane Kiffin. And then it didn't work out for whatever reasons. And we knew that he had interest in the program. So at first, just the emotional side of it is just like, it should have been Lane. That's what it felt like. But I mean, he's completely won me over so far. Obviously, you got to see everything that happens in the future. I think, signing day was a big one for me. I wanted to see if he was able to retain, some of this class. And so far, I mean, knock on wood, he's done a really good job of that. Obviously, retaining football players at the University of Florida is huge. We'll see how that goes. And then your offensive coordinator hire is probably the most important thing right now because we've had our struggles on offense before, and I think that can destroy your tenure here. So, I mean, after the press conference, he was awesome. He was a great interview. His his honesty was really refreshing. I think there was a couple questions in there, and this is no shot at Billy Napier, but there was a couple questions where, in the past you would expect to kind of get sideswiped, kind of like, move around the question, not really answer it. But he was straightforward with you. A little intimidating if you're a reporter, a young reporter.
Yeah.
He's gonna tell you how it is. I mean, you guys saw it with the ain't no maybe cuz quote out there. He's gonna tell you how it is. But I love it. I think, that's what he was sold coming into Florida. Everyone kind of said that about him, that he's going to be honest with you. He's going to be straight up. And he said all the right things at the press conference. So he's slowly winning me over for sure. Not that I was, I don't want to put it out there that I was like super against the hire or anything,
Of
but
course.
when you sell yourself on one guy and then it's not that guy, you take some time to get over it. But I think he said the right things. He's done the right things so far. We'll see with the OC hire. We'll see with if he can retain a lot of this roster. I think there's a lot of important guys on this roster that we want to see retained. And a lot of them were at the press conference, which is a really good sign. I know, DJ Lagway was there. Dallas Wilson was there. Vernell Brown was there. A lot of guys were there. I mean, Jaden Ball was missing, but, I think that was always going to be kind of an uphill battle just because he's never really, seemed like he was 100% confident in staying at Florida. So we'll still see with that. But I'm excited. I think he's done all the right things so far, and we'll see as we go.
Your thoughts on the recent hire of a new coordinator and the former coordinator officially of Kentucky, Brad White?
Yeah. I think, I'm not going to come on here and act like I'm the most knowledgeable guy on Brad White right now. I think from the outlying stats I've seen, I think it has the potential to be a great hire. I think it also has the potential to kind of flame out just because, you've seen he's been dropping off lately in his production, his defensive production. But at the same time, Kentucky fans will tell you themselves that they didn't have the talent there and they were not doing too well. And I think, people wanted the former Kentucky head coach as our DC, and you go over to Kentucky Twitter and they're talking about how the DC kind of carried him sometimes. So I think it has the potential to be a great hire. I think, we're going to have to wait and see a little bit just because you really never know how an adjustment might go. Florida has the talent on defense where he could come in and be phenomenal, right? He has all the talent he needs, but at the same time, it could just not work out. So I'm not going to. I think it was a good hire. I think I love the look of it so far. I think fans are they're getting a little overwhelmed with the hire my friends quote, and they're acting like this is him hiring his friend. I mean, they work together. That doesn't mean they're best buddies. Like the argument with Billy Napier. The argument with Billy Napier when he brought in his staff was he was bringing in his staff from his last job, and he was acting as if Florida was Louisiana. That he was acting as if it was the same job. He was just going to bring his friends. This is a SEC coordinator who's done it at a high level, in recent times. I don't think this is him saying, hey, I got an upgrade for a job. Let me bring you along and like you can celebrate my success too. This is him hiring a proven SEC coordinator. So I'm excited for it. And yeah, I think it's a good first step and a good start.
If our class stays intact, or if the Gator class stays intact for 2026, excluding maybe Carson Baker, because there's a strong chance he may be a Texas A&M Aggie. Where does our class land?
Yeah, I'm not too sure about the overall number on it yet. We'll have to see. I know Carson Baker officially decommitted yesterday, but there's still rumbling. I know Florida's not out of it necessarily. I think Texas A&M is making a late push. I would have liked the Gators' chances more if they weren't making that late push. I think they're, bringing in the bag a little bit, and I think Florida was confident before that. But there's still a shot that he ends up a Florida Gator. I really like him. I think he's a great recruit. I've watched his film. It's awesome. But yeah, I'm not sure on the number, but it's a really great class. I mean, there's a couple guys that are still undecided. I think Baker's not the only one. Davion Gross, who is my favorite prospect in the 2026 recruiting class in general, not just Florida's. From who I've watched, he's incredible. I think he's going to be one of the best wide receivers in this class when it's all said and done. He is, there's reports that he's trending to Oklahoma. There's also reports that Florida is battling there. I think that's a big one to watch tonight. I think he signs at 9:30 tonight. I think Florida has a good chance there, but it's been a battle with Oklahoma for a while now, so we'll see with that. But yeah, this is, from who they've signed already and who I expect to sign, I expect most of the other guys to sign, other than maybe Gross, maybe CJ Hester's one to watch. But this class is great. I think it's going to be, a great kind of transition class for Summerall, especially. He has been here so little time, and he's getting a lot of big-time recruits who stuck with the program, which is really huge. You don't see that a lot. I wrote an article today about how huge the keeping of KJ Ford was. I don't think a lot of people expected that. There was a lot of rumors about Texas A&M. That was a huge retention. He's a great football player. So, yeah, from what I've seen so far today, Summerall has done a great job. I don't know how much of it is him, since he's still focused on, Tulane at the same time, and how much of it is just behind the scenes. The Gators brought in a new GM who's working hard. They still got staff. So I don't know how much of it is Summerall, how much of it is someone else, but it's awesome to see Florida's class be retained so well. And we'll see with the last couple of guys. I think Davion Gross is the biggest one that I need to see stay in the class before I can say, like, this class is, incredible, but it's still going to be a good class regardless.
Your thoughts on that former Gator recruit, Waddy Cleveland, flipping from Texas to North Carolina?
Yeah, I think it's the sign of the times, right? North Carolina has been downright awful this year. I don't think you can argue that. I think they have not been a good football team. And he's flipping from Texas, which, Texas, they haven't had a dominating year, but it's still Texas. I think it kind of shows you that there's more at play than just, I want to go play for the best program. I want to go play for the best coaches. And, Bill Belichick is Bill Belichick. You can't deny his greatness at the NFL level, but at the same time, we haven't seen it at the college football level. So definitely an interesting one. I know there was rumblings about it, but I think it had a lot to do with NIL. And I think that's the world that we live in now. And, that's why I kind of try to tell people that I talk to about recruiting is, at the end of the day, we can flip out about, this guy's flipped, we're like in trouble because our coach can't recruit well because this guy flipped. At the end of the day, there's so many factors that go into it. I think NIL is changing the game. I think that's not too crazy to say. And that's a perfect example of it, which is a shock, and we'll see how it works out for him. But it's definitely an interesting world we live in.
Just to throw this out there because I see it all the time, and I see it on my videos and I see it on X. Is Scott Strickland going anywhere?
No, I don't. I don't think so. At least for now. I know fans are not too happy with him. I think there is some difficulty in understanding what went on behind the scenes. Sorry about that. Just with the Lane Kiffin stuff, because we love to overreact to stuff, and I do think that there was some negatives to that Lane Kiffin drama. I think that Florida had a better chance they had a good chance to get him, and there was some things behind the scenes that made that chance less. That probably shouldn't have happened. But at the end of the day, you see reports coming out about Lane Kiffin and he didn't like Scott Strickland because Scott Strickland was going to do too much and have control. And I don't know how much I believe in that, especially you're seeing reports now, Lane Kiffin lying about, the last AD at Ole Miss. He's been getting exposed by his football players, getting exposed by media. So, I'm coming on here and saying, Scott Strickland, because he did the best he could in this hire, because I think there was factors that were on him and the reason why we didn't land Lane Kiffin. But at the same time, I think that whole drama is clearly beyond what we understand and beyond what we know. And, you got to ask yourself, as the University of Florida, would you want to be in LSU's shoes here, where it's kind of like Lane Kiffin drama is crazy right now. He's getting exposed left and right for multiple things. He's lying. He doesn't seem like most trustworthy. Commits are decommitting. And I think there's always been kind of red flags to Lane Kiffin that Florida fans overlooked, because he is a great coach. And I'm not coming on here saying he's not, but I think, there's going to be people upset with Scott Strickland because of the Lane Kiffin situation. But at the end of the day, I don't think Florida administration is looking at him like, oh, you're fired because we didn't get Lane Kiffin. I think there was definitely a lot of red flags there. And I think he will have a little bit of a longer leash. And we'll see in the future. I'm not saying he's here for the next 10 years, but he's definitely good for now, in my opinion.
Your first impressions of Coach Summerall. Is there a Gator coach? I know it's too early, but I'll ask the question anyways, and you can sidestep it until there's more evidence if you want to. Is there a Gator coach you're willing to compare him to right now in terms of fire, or is he like Gator Nation claims him to be? I don't believe this. Billy Napier 2.0. I doubt it completely, but I want your thoughts on it.
Yeah, listen, I'm not the best person to compare to old Gators coaches, just because I'm still a young guy. I didn't really start, even paying attention to Florida football or even college football till I was a freshman in college.
Okay.
In high school, I would watch games here and there, but I wasn't. So, I can't come on here and say he reminds me of this guy. Obviously, I know my history a lot more now. I cover the team, so I've done my research. Yeah. But I will say, to your second point about Billy Napier comparisons, the resume you can say looks like Billy Napier's, and I can agree with that. I mean, the resumes are pretty similar, but the coaches are completely different guys. I mean, you watch his press conference. I was there in person. That was not Billy Napier up there on the stage. There was so many different things from Billy Napier, and this is not a shot at Billy Napier again. I don't want to make this like a hate on Billy Napier moment, but he was just, up there on the stage. You knew it wasn't Billy Napier talking. There was a lot of refreshing things in a way with him that were different than Napier. He's a defensive-minded coach. Billy Napier was an offensive-minded coach, and I think, fans kind of confuse that, and they say, oh, our offense was so bad, so now John Summerall, who's a G5 coach, it's just going to be the same thing because, his offense aren't good too. Billy Napier's whole selling point was that he was an offensive-minded coach. He had his own offense. It was going to be awesome, and it flamed out. John Summerall has never once said, oh, my offense is going to come here and ball out. He's admitted that he's going to go a different direction with his offense than he did at Tulane, than he did at Troy. He's going to hire the right guy who's, he hopes to have a explosive offense with. So I think there's a lot of differences between Billy Napier and John Summerall, and just character-wise, ability-wise. And the other thing is, and I know a lot of fans either don't want to admit this or weren't on this side, but a lot of the talk around Billy Napier was, oh, but if he gets an offensive coordinator and he lets the offensive coordinator cook, like he could be a great coach. Like, oh, if he just delegates to the offensive coordinator. And that's what John Summerall is talking about doing, and that's what he's kind of, said he's going to do. So if you were on the side that Billy Napier could be a great coach if he delegated correctly and if he did the right things, John Summerall has given you no, reason to not believe he's going to do that. So I feel like, a lot of people are freaking out about the similarities there. And I think, on a resume standpoint, yes, but, resume is a resume. Every coach has to build their resume somehow. And I think Summerall's done a great job of building his. I'm not going to hold that against him. And, personality-wise, they are completely different. I can tell you from talking to them, at least talking to Summerall for the first time, you can just tell they're completely different. And I'm not buying into they're the same coach.
Didn't I know the answer. I'm just asking it so it can be put out there on the internet. Didn't Signetti and Urban Meyer come from the G5?
Yeah, Summerall pointed that out at his press conference. He said, if I'm not mistaken, Urban, Coach G5, Signetti. And that's the thing that Florida fans kind of, it's a lazy take to just be like, oh, G5 coach, we got burned by him last time. And I understand it. It's tough when you want a power 4 coach who's had experience, but you get a G5 coach who you just had. But every coach is different. John Summerall's path is completely different than Billy Napier's, even though they both were from G5. I promise you, it was different things. I think the easy way out of it is, both P5 or both G5. Sorry, they're not going to work out. But realistically, Summerall's gonna work out or not work out for his own reasons, the same way Billy Napier did not work out for his own reasons, and they're gonna have completely different tenures here.
Again, I know this answer. I'm asking it for to bring some light to his career. Didn't Coach John Summerall play in the SEC?
He did. He played at Kentucky. He talked about a little bit about the injury that kind of ended his career, but he played at Kentucky, a little bit different than Furman, where Coach Napier played. He also coached at Kentucky and Ole Miss, and I believe I don't know, he did not get fired if I'm not mistaken. He moved on and chose a different path and got hired out of Kentucky. So there's a little bit of differences there. I know Billy Napier famously got fired from Clemson as the play caller, as the OC. Summerall, he doesn't have that. So just small things like that, it pretty much, destroys your argument that they're the same coach if you're one of those guys that's like, oh, G5, they're the same guy.
If I'm not mistaken, he's also put players in the NFL.
Yeah, he has. He's put a couple, even in recent times. And some of his players that Darian Mensah bought at Duke right now. Makai Hughes was running back in the portal, went to Oregon, didn't really get playing time there. Will probably be in the portal again if I had to guess. But, I mean, just recently he's had some really great football players and really wanted across the country.
Who are some potential offensive coordinators that we can see become the offensive coordinator at Florida?
Yeah, a couple of names I've heard, and they've kind of been leaked out there a little now, is the Tennessee OC. I know he's a big I think someone on Twitter leaked that he's the leader for the job. I've been hearing about his name for a while. The Georgia Tech OC, I've been hearing his name for a while. Interestingly, Brent Key just got an extension today, so we'll see if that either helps Florida's chances with him or hurts it. I don't know. But he's one of the names. And then Pittsburgh's OC, we've been hearing about him for forever. He has Florida ties. He's a good play caller. So those are the three names I'm hearing. I'm excited for all of them. I haven't necessarily found my leader yet. I've heard really great things about the Georgia Tech OC. I think, it's hard again because you don't want to judge them about where they're coaching now and their strategy now. Like, for example, the Georgia Tech OC, he has a lot of quarterback runs with Haynes King, but at the same time, that's what Haynes King does really well, so I'm not going to think he's going to come in here and run DJ Lagway that way. But I think all three are really, exciting names. I think Florida will get one of those three guys unless we get a crazy curveball or something changes. But I'm excited for all three, and I think all three could be, really great hires in the end.
Is Caden Bell, the son of Mr. Bell, I forget his first name right now, a realistic shot at becoming the OC of Gainesville?
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing, and this is obviously not strong yet because I think they're still, doing their due diligence with a lot of
Correct.
guys and looking into it a lot. I do think that he would be the third option behind the Tennessee guy and the Georgia Tech guy. But I still think there's a possibility that he comes here. I think he's done a great job at Pitt. I mean, even this year, when we talk about our pick'em shows, he has a freshman quarterback absolutely balling out right now. His offense has been consistently really exciting to watch. They've produced some really good football players. Their running back this year was the talk of college football last year. He was a really good running back. So and I'd love Jaden Ball to be under that. So I think he's definitely a realistic option. I think there's always moving parts in college football, and you never know until the paper's signed and it's announced who will be the OC here. But he's definitely a realistic option and an exciting one at that.
Could we pretty much, I would say 90% guarantee, based on pictures that I saw online, BB3 is going to be here. DJ Lagway is going to be here. Ball's going to be here. And Miles Graham.
Yeah, I think there's different.
We saw DJ basically give him a hug and BB3 give him a hug.
Yeah, I think there's different possibilities for all those players you mentioned. I think the two that I would say 100% are Gators is Miles Graham and Vernell Brown III. And I would have told you that before Florida hired anyone. I think those guys, legacy Gators, were kind of always staying here, in my opinion. DJ Lagway, he when he talked to the media after Tennessee, he told us that he was a Gator for life. He told us that, he wanted to be here. And then after FSU, it kind of turned into, I want to see, who comes as head coach, but I'm still a Gator for life. I just want to see who they hire first. And then you see him, at the press conference, you see him hugging John Summerall. So I think DJ Lagway, I'd give it a 95% chance. I'm guessing that works out, but you never know, whether it's DJ Lagway wants to be here and Summerall might not, see the vision with him, or the other way around. Lagway, decides that it's better to transfer. I think he's at 95. Jaden Ball, I'm not as confident in. I know I put a tweet out there when we were talking to him after the Tennessee game. He mentioned he never tries to think ahead. He tries to live in the moment. Life's short. And, however you want to read to that, I know a lot of fans took it as, oh, we're cooked. He's not coming back. But I truly think that's, what he means is he tries to live in the moment. So I think Summerall, and I talked to the new GM, Dave Caldwell, about Jaden Ball specifically. And I said, I'm sure you're aware of Jaden Ball, how important is he to retain? And Caldwell, he basically said, yeah, we're aware of Jaden Ball. He's very important to retain. He's a good football player. So I think Florida's going to do whatever they can to retain him. I think his mind is not made up yet, but that could change very quickly. And I would put that as around 75% chance right now because, Jaden Ball's side, I don't know his interest in it. If it's, a lot to a little, I haven't heard anything about it. But I do know the Florida side, they're going to be very interested in bringing him back and very determined to do so.
Is that why Carson Baker has not decided where he wants to go? Because he decommitted, and I thought 100%. I even responded to his tweet. I said, "Good luck, little bro. As long as you don't play the Gators. When you play the Gators, you're Gator bait." He didn't reply back because he does interact with me every so often. But obviously, to that tweet, he did not reply back. Is that why Carson Baker hasn't decided to become a Gator, or is he not a Gator and just wants to see who he's going to hire? Because some of these kids are after the money and not on the logo per se.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that Jaden Ball specifically is why Carson Baker decommitted or is considering coming back. I think there's a lot that goes into it. I think, NIL is definitely a serious factor. I think that's why Texas A&M is pushing hard. And as much as we want to say, oh, you got to commit for the logo, you're getting offered a lot of money as a high schooler. You're gonna consider it, especially Texas A&M, who's in a good spot right now. I think if you look at the Florida success recently and Texas A&M success, it's hard to push Florida. But I truly think it's a lot of different things. I think Carson Baker does need to build that relationship with John Summerall. I'm sure Summerall is going to continue to push even up until him signing. I believe he signs tomorrow, but he's going to continue to push. But yeah, I wouldn't say that Carson Baker's waiting for Jaden Ball's decision. I think it's more of just a lot of different factors: NIL, new coaching, new relationships, all that stuff. So I think Florida still has a good shot. I think it's going to be a battle, and so were a couple other ones. I mean, Texas A&M pushed hard for KJ Ford, and a lot of people said, "Oh, the money's going to win out, and Texas A&M is going to take him." But Florida was able to retain him, so we'll see. We'll see on Sunday, but I think it's definitely a lot of different factors for Carson Baker.
Who's expected to sign early from this class? Is the majority of the class going to sign early? If you do know that information, where can the fan base watch all these kids decide where they're going to go to school?
Oh yeah, they're deciding. A couple have already decided today. I believe last time I checked, it was maybe 13 of the 16 or so commits have signed already. You got to
Wow, that's
go.
pretty good.
Florida Gator on SI has the tracker going. You can follow it there. I can't tell you all their live streams because they all have different ones, but go to their Twitters if you want to find their live streams, all that stuff. But yeah, so far Florida has retained most of their class, which is really impressive. The most recent that I saw before hopping on here was Kendall Gervil signed, which was a big one.
Yes, I saw that one
He's
myself.
really
yes.
good. Yeah, I mean, KJ Ford signed. CJ Brownell signed, which was awesome, which was a huge deal. Even Marquez Daniels signed, which I kind of knew from the get-go. I talked to him a little about John Summerall because he went and he talked with him and visited with him at Tulane. So Marquez Daniels definitely a fan of John Summerall, and he's officially a Gator now. But yeah, we have quite a few. I think the couple of names that are unsigned currently, Davion Gross signs around 9:30. He probably posted a link on Twitter if you want to go there. The tight end, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name. He's like a Hawaiian tight end. He is unsigned. No, Hezzy Kent's already signed. Signed.
Okay.
I'm talking about the one that went to IMG.
Yeah, I know
he's kind of been under the radar. He's
a
hair. 3-star.
Yeah, the one with long hair.
Yeah,
I can't
3-star
remember
guy.
his name, but I know you.
I think there's schools pushing for him. I think Washington's one of them. We'll see with him. He's kind of an underrated, under the radar signing. I know not a lot of fans are paying attention to him. And then CJ Hester's one that's big. I think there's rumors or there's whispers that he might not be 100% a Gator, but I mean from who I've talked to and Cam Parker knows him well. He's talked to him before. Cam Parker said he's confident-ish that he's going to be a Gator from last I heard. So we'll see with those 3 or 4. I know Florida's also looking to flip some guys. There was some predictions for flips. I know there's an LSU commit that is high school teammates with Marquez Daniel, who already signed, and he's been, kind of crystal ball to Florida, safety, 4-star, big time recruit. So it's going to be, pay attention to your phones, as the great Dan Thompson once said. Pay attention to your phones today. Yeah, just keep watching out. We got the tracker on Gators on SI if you want to go look at that, and we'll be dropping some articles throughout the day of guys signing and what was going on behind the scenes. I dropped one about KJ Ford already. I'll have one about Gross, and I know a couple other Kyle Lander and Cam Parker have a couple others. So keep paying attention, and we'll see as Florida tries to finish out this class.
Do you know of any coaches, or have you heard any information on any coaches that potentially Coach Summerall may retain from the current staff? Obviously, Ron Roberts is gone.
Yeah. I have not heard anything like, behind the scenes yet, but I do know that it seems like there's a plan to keep at least one or two. I mean, he mentioned it in the press conference. He said, a couple guys that were on the staff will stay. I think the main one that kind of feels really good already is Gerald Chapman, who was in the press conference with John Summerall.
Okay.
A lot of his players were there. A lot of his D-line players were there, and I think Florida fans love him. If I'm not mistaken, I haven't really done research on this. I might be mistaken. I feel like Gerald Chapman was at Tulane like 3 years ago before he came to Florida.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, so I'm guessing there's a little bit of a relationship already there with Summerall, even though Summerall only got there. He might have even gotten there after Chapman was already gone, but I'm sure they have had discussions. So I think he's one that you kind of expect to stay after being at the press conference. I know Mike P was at the press conference. Mike Peterson, he's been a Gator, his whole life. He was a Gator out of college. He was a Gator, So we'll see with him as the edge coach, but he was there. I'm pretty sure. And yeah, other than that, we'll have to see. I think, behind the scenes, a lot of stuff is going on. I haven't heard too much about, any set in stone, retentions just yet.
Is there a shot Brandon Spikes may stay and Billy G?
I can 100% promise you Brent Spikes is staying. He was in every, there's a reason he was the guy talking in every recruiting video because they didn't really have anyone else to do it. And he was on staff. He's 100% staying. I think, I'd find it hard to believe that he ever is not, with the Gators unless something crazy happens. Billy Gonzalez is an interesting one. I haven't heard too much about it. I think, he's shown that he loves the Gator brand and he loves being a Gator. So we'll have to see with that. He had a great quote after FSU where he said, "Tonight I'm just going to go and sit in the hot tub and enjoy myself." Like he was not too worried about, what's next just yet. So we'll see with him. I think there's a good chance just if I was feeling it out because he's done so much for the university, he did, as much as we wanted to win more games with him at the helm, he did a great job as an intern, keeping this class together, this recruiting class. I think he had a big part in that, keeping these players locked in. So I think he deserves a spot back. We'll see if he wants one. We'll see if he's offered one. But I really do appreciate Billy Gonzalez's efforts, and I think Florida does as well.
Any thoughts on? Do you think? I know we signed Will Griffin, but do you think Coach Summerall may bring a quarterback with him?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I mean, at Tulane, his starter, Jake Retzloff, I'm pretty sure is either out of eligibility or probably will go somewhere else anyways. He came over from BYU after a huge scandal there. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I do know that there was some crazy stuff going on when he left BYU. So I know
about it. I'm not going to say anything, but I know about it.
Yeah. But I don't know if I mean John Summerall recruiting wise mentioned that he told every one of his Tulane commits to commit to Tulane. He said, "Don't, your Tulane commits, I'm not going to steal you," which, is all class from him. I mean, it's interesting to watch because I know there was reports that his highest rated commit and the fourth highest rated commit ever at Tulane was going to flip to Florida right after Summerall got announced. Then that was, said that was a mistake report. So we'll see what goes on there. I haven't seen if he's signed yet, but I think that could be a possibility. I also noticed there was a Tulane 3-star, Orion Sanders, I believe. He decided not to sign today. And he's, he liked some of my Florida tweets, so I was like, all right, I'm noticing here now. We got to keep an eye on him. But we'll see out with a couple of those guys. But yeah, in the end, I think the quarterback situation, I mean, I would really expect the OC to maybe bring a quarterback more than him. I mean, if it's the Tennessee guy, probably not. You're not bringing over your guy. And if it's the Georgia Tech guy, you're not bringing over your guy. But Pitt has a really good freshman quarterback. You never know if he decides to switch. But I do believe, I mean, I said I was 95% sure DJ Lagway was a Florida Gator. I do believe he'll be the starting quarterback next year for the Florida Gators, and I'm excited for that. And I think recruiting-wise, it's going to be Will Griffin, and I don't think Summerall brings another quarterback. So I think, I'm pretty confident in these are the guys that we will have, and I'm excited for it.
Again, any news on TJ? I would love to see DJ, TJ, and Will Griffin in the quarterback room. That's not a bad quarterback room by any means.
Yeah, no, TJ was at the press conference as well. He was sitting in the back. So I think he's locked in. I haven't heard anything behind the scenes on if he actually is locked in. We'll have to see with that. But, Florida has really built a strong group of young players that seem, committed to the logo more than anything. I think seeing them at the press conference just kind of confirmed that. It was really exciting. Dallas Wilson was there, Vernell Brown. All these guys are really close friends, and they really seem, committed to the Florida logo. So we'll have to see. Obviously, stuff changes rapidly in college football, and you never know what's going to happen. I do think there is a realistic world where we see DJ Lagway, I almost said Vernell Brown, TJ, and Will Griffin in the quarterback room next year.
Any recent updates on Cormani McClain's health? Because in my opinion, I don't know, this could change obviously with the recruits he brings in, but Cormani McClain should be CB1 in 2026.
Yeah. I mean, I saw him at the FSU game. He was, I believe he had crutches. He was with a knee brace, but he was believed, I believe it was reported he was believed to, avoid any serious injury. I'm not sure if he had surgery, and I'm not sure what the extent of his injury was, but it wasn't anything too serious. So I don't think it's going to be affecting him up until next year. I think he'll be healthy come week 1. And I hope that's as a Florida Gator. I mean, he posted something today on Twitter of him lining up against an Ole Miss player and in his Florida gear. So I'm hoping that's maybe a confirming that he's going to be a Gator next year. We'll have to see. Yeah. I think he's a really good football player. Like you said, I think he could be cornerback 1 next year. So we'll have to see. But I think injury-wise, I think he avoided anything really serious.
All right, guys. All I can say is this is some coverage of the recruiting class. Next year, I plan to have as much coverage as possible, being live. And we didn't talk too much about the FSU game because the production spoke for itself. As you can see, if they would have fed Baugh early in the season, probably we would have been a better team. But the 2025 season's over. We are going to, once we know the playoffs, we will do a pregame and postgame for the playoffs, and I'll work around Dylan's schedule. Guys, I appreciate all your support. Follow my boy Dylan at X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Dylan Olive_UF. Follow his work on Gators SI. Follow Cam Parker, his employee. Cam, don't kill me. Follow all the boys at Gators SI. And I'll continue to give you coverage as much as possible. Maybe once we have a coordinator, all the coordinators will come and discuss what we think of the staff once he has time. And we'll tell you what we expect from the 2026 Florida Gators once we have more information on the current staff. But in my opinion, it just seems like we're going from Ron Zook to Urban Meyer. That's just my opinion. I'm calling it early. I may get burned later, but that's my opinion. And like always, I appreciate all your support. Stay positive, stay on your grind, and go Gators.